Welcome all you lovely people to another r/malicious compliance video. Our first story of the day is by Patty and Jay. Mock me in my work, then ask directions? Okay. This happened back in the early 1980s, so all dialogue is condensed and paraphrased. I was a 19-year-old, geek, sickening, all-American boy type, male, putting myself through school as a sweeper working for the Mouse in Southern California. We sweepers are in every public area of the park, are the most approached employees for questions, not intimidating like security, swamped like the character actors, or isolated by queues, fences, or walls like the ride operators or restaurant/store personnel, and are generally knowledgeable and friendly. It is very much a customer service position. It was a good gig, and I found the Mouse good to work for. My primary work area was centered around the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, which is a major traffic hub in the park. At busy times, most summer days, it was hot, crowded, and by shift end, you were glad it was done and ready to go home. I was late into the last hour of my shift. The crowds had thinned out, not disappeared, that would be hours hence, but the sun was down and the night was pleasant. I was happily cruising about, keeping my area neat. Have pen and broom, will travel, when a pair of 30-something males struttingly approached. Let us call them Mocker 1 and Mocker 2. I am me. Mocker 1 says, "Hey sweeper, there's some popcorn spilled up by the haunted mansion. Better go clean it up." Mocker 2 laughs nastily. That is some hundreds of yards away in another guy's area. Not only not my problem, but actually, unless some danger was caused by it, I shouldn't go. Me with a friendly smile and nod say, "Thanks, we'll get it." Mocker 1 tossing a cup on the ground. He had walked by at least 4 trash cans between where he was and the haunted mansion. "Here, get this." With a flourish, I popped it into my pan with my broom. Mocker 2 in a sneering voice, "When is the 3 o'clock parade?" This caused Mocker 1 to laugh. Believe it or not, this is a very common question, one that can be heard multiple times daily. Usually it translates to, "What is the parade route and when should I get there to get a good spot?" But this was at 8:45 p.m., I was off at 9, so was just meant to annoy me and to waste my time. I cheerfully say, "The 3 o'clock parade will be tomorrow at 3 o'clock. This pair continued on in this vein for another 5 minutes, asking random, generally pointless questions, pointing out the odd cigarette butt / leaf / piece of paper, and generally mocking and sneering at me, my work, and the park. Basically mocking me for their own entertainment and wasting my time. I found it mildly annoying, but had long ago, this was my second summer with the Mouse, realized that if 995 out of 1,000 folks are nice and are cheerfully set on having fun, you still get the other 5. And when park attendance ranged from 12,000, very dead, to 55,000, screaming lunacy, that meant that you had 60 to 275 jerks running around on any given day. Knowing that helped me maintain a cheerful perspective. People are, by and large, overwhelmingly nice. Still, as said, it was mildly annoying. It was at this moment that the heavens opened and a choir of angels sang, "La," and Mocker 2 asked the single most common question. "Oh hey, I gotta go. Where's the bathroom?" Mocker 1 chiming in, "Yeah, where is it?" Now, in a surprisingly Warren-like space behind me, there was a tiny and hard-to-find restroom. I never sent anyone there. It was well hidden. I think dating from park construction, and it was little used. Only guided urgent cases personally. Nope, not this time. The next closest was to my right, across Adventureland. Straight walk, can't miss it at the end. 3 minutes, less if moving urgently. Nope. With a nod and a cheerful customer service smile, motioning with my hand for them to turn around. Turn around. See that rail? Go to it and follow it to the right. When it ends, there will be a path on the right. At the end of that path is another path on the right. The restroom is there. And they set off. I'm sure that they were quite expressive when they arrived 2 lands away, halfway across the park to the tiny elderly restroom in Fantasyland. 10 minutes later, I was off and I never saw those 2 again. Jerk move? Arguably so, I cannot deny, but I file it under play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and is an example of the lack of wisdom of asking directions from, after mocking/belittling, a stranger. If these guys were being jerks to you and asked for directions to really anywhere, would you want to do what OP did and purposely give them the worst directions possible so they just waste all their time? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Chainsmoker Magic. Customer thought we were moving her stuff too slow and wearing her tone, so we hurried up. So I work as a mover for a very small moving company. My boss, let's call him Mike, is a really nice guy. It's really just a 2-man operation, with me working as a subcontractor under him with a few regular guys we call in for bigger moves. It's really physically demanding work sometimes, but typically our customers are super nice and the pay's pretty good. Most people are just happy to have someone else to lift their heavy stuff and get it into a truck. And we're always super careful to not cause any damage to the buildings we're moving in and out of, or the items we're moving, which most people appreciate. Not this lady. Let's call her Darcy. So Darcy booked a move with Mike, and told him she had a small storage unit she wanted us to load up into a 20-foot truck. We said no problem. As the date of her move approached though, so did a huge snowstorm. Days before her move, the news started reporting that the weather was expected to take a severe turn for the worst. Not uncommon for the time of year in our state, but also something not to be trifled with. We called Darcy a couple of days before the move to see about rescheduling to avoid the storm, and she said she absolutely had to move that day. No other days would work. A lot of probably much smarter movers would have canceled. But after talking, Mike and I thought it was no big deal. We move in the snow all the time. Just meant we would have to dress appropriately and be extra careful not to injure ourselves or damage any property. Cut to the day of the move. We get to Darcy's storage unit, expecting a 10x10x15 standard storage unit full of your usual stuff based on what she'd indicated on the phone, and loaded into a 20-foot truck. That's a pretty easy job to get done in the 2 hours that she'd already prepaid for. As we pulled up, the snow was already coming down pretty heavily, and the first thing that made us nervous was the truck. Instead of a 20-foot truck, there was a huge 26-foot truck. Darcy greeted us by the truck and showed us the storage unit. Darcy goes, "Okay, so this is our unit. We shut down our businesses and I'm moving it out of town to pursue other opportunities. And I need all of this loaded up in 2 hours. The last movers I had got it unloaded in about that long." Mike said something about the truck being bigger than she told us. "Yeah, it's the biggest one U-Haul had. Last time we used another company and it was much bigger. I'm worried about getting it all, but you guys will have to figure it out. I need all of it." This was a huge storage unit, like the kind you'd store a few cars or some farm equipment in. When we opened it up, it was filled with what appeared to be the contents of a couple of pretty decently sized businesses. A dozen of those huge floor-to-ceiling filing cabinets, several desks, office chairs, some really huge glass tables, and all of it was incredibly heavy. Now, our company's safety guidelines for weight limits are 100 pounds per person lifting an item, but there's no real practical way to enforce that in the field. So we usually wind up just using our best judgment, even if the item is over that limit. Nearly everything there was over limit, but we had our equipment and we were pretty confident we could handle everything, weight-wise. Mike and I are both pretty strong, but in my estimation, this was definitely going to take a bit longer than 2 hours. Mike told her that we would do our absolute best. To be fair, he should have leveled with her then and there that it would take a bit more time, but he probably wanted to see if we could just get it busted out as quick as possible and see where we were at before getting the customer needlessly worried. Darcy sat in her truck nearly the whole time we were working so she could stay warm. Perfectly understandable since it was -2 degrees Fahrenheit outside and the snow was coming down pretty hard. Though she'd occasionally roll down her window to offer up critiques, mostly about how much time we were taking going up and down the metal ramp of the truck, which was now covered in ice and snow. About an hour and some change into the move, Darcy gets out of her truck and starts chatting with Mike about her previous movers and how they did cause some damage to her stuff, but they were so fast. It was weird. She went back and forth between complaining about them and praising them for their speed, and she kept referring to them as the professional moving service I hired, which really bugged me because the way she said it seemed to be implying that because we weren't a big national company like Mayflower, that somehow Mike and I weren't professional movers, despite the fact that this is literally our full-time jobs. Now we're far enough into this move that we could tell this was going to run long. Mike decides it's a good idea to let her know that it's probably going to take a half hour or so longer than expected, which was still a feat, considering how much there was to move and how well packed this truck was. I pride myself on playing a mean game of truck Tetris. Darcy was not having this. She started to get upset and started saying how we were just trying to get more money out of her and we were dilly-dallying. Yes, those words actually left the mouth of a grown woman. Then she starts in on how the professional movers got the same stuff unloaded in 2 hours. It should take the same time to load it. Mike explains to her that unloading always takes less time than loading because you're moving it into a bigger space and you don't have to pack and pad the stuff to fit into a truck. I also mentioned that there's literally a blizzard coming down and we're only going to go a little over. She gets quiet and seething. Mike can tell how angry she is and lets her know we won't charge her for any extra time since it's not her fault the weather's crappy. He also brings up that they damaged her stuff, and we've done a pretty good job. Darcy says, "I don't care, you said 2 hours, I expect it done, just get it done. I'm going to leave you guys a terrible review." She stomps back to her truck without saying another word. I'm usually pretty chill, but I was already getting increasingly mad at this woman. Her yelling at my boss and calling us lazy when we were risking our health and safety to move her stuff in a blizzard was just too much for me. Mike thinks about this for a moment. I know customer reviews are super important to us as a small business. The booking site we use highlights the last handful of reviews, so a bad one takes forever to stop showing up, as it's basically the first thing people see when they click on your page. So I'm expecting Mike to try and keep her happy, but instead he just grins and turns to me. "Freak it, you heard her. Cue malicious compliance. She wanted it all loaded in 2 hours? That's exactly what we do." The front half of her truck was loaded up neatly, with everything padded and stacked tightly floor to ceiling to keep it from moving on the road. I pride myself on my ability to load a truck properly and safely without wasting any space. The second half of her truck was the worst, jankiest truck I've ever loaded in my life. We're talking huge, heavy office furniture haphazardly stacked on top of each other at the weirdest angles. Heavy stuff on top of light stuff. Anything to just get the storage unit empty and the truck door closed. We even stacked really heavy office chairs on top of glass tabletops. By the end of it, the truck looked like you'd asked Escher or Geiger to draw you a picture of an office. I just want to be clear. We've never intentionally damaged a customer's property, and we never would. We pride ourselves on our professionalism, courtesy, and especially our ability to get your stuff where it's going safely. But this particular combination of unsafe conditions and this lady's outright disregard for our safety and feelings was just too much. And technically, we didn't damage anything. Nothing was broken when we closed the truck doors, but literally the first bump in the road or decently tight turn was definitely going to cause hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in damage. We closed the truck door and walked over to Darcy's truck and let her know. Mike went to her truck. He told her that we were done and that he wasn't going to charge her at all for the move. She insisted that she's not poor and doesn't need charity. And Mike just said that it was clear that she wasn't happy and that he didn't need her $150. That's right, we charge $75 an hour, so the extra half hour we needed to do it right would have cost her a whopping $37. He canceled the job and refunded her what she'd already prepaid. As we drove away in Mike's car, I looked at him. You realize by the time that she gets where she's going, she's looking at a lot of damaged furniture, right? She's going to hit us with a bad review and maybe even try to sue. Mike says she was worried about paying an extra $37. I doubt she'll risk more money on hiring a lawyer. And besides, you can't leave a review on the site if the job gets canceled. We just gave her exactly what she wanted. And besides, it's worth losing out on the money I would have made just to see her face when I said I didn't need her $150. When he dropped me off, he still paid me for my time because freak that lady. My boss, Mike, is a really nice guy. Mike's just really lucky that he operates on a platform that has to have a proper order in place for you to leave a review. Because I know good old Darcy would go straight to any Google reviews platform they could and leave a scathing review. And it's especially devastating for those small businesses because you just don't get very many reviews. But by all accounts, Mike sounds like an awesome guy. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like. And if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.